Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you are a returning listener, we're glad to have you back. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We hope you like what you hear and you'll join us in the future. So, our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So, today's episode, we're going to talk about some tips that you can use to learn to sell without selling. So, what we mean by that is nobody likes the hard charging used car sales approach, window sales approach, those types of timeshare sales. Nobody likes those hard sell approaches. Are they effective to bully people into purchasing sometimes? Sure, they are. You have long term success using those tactics. If you're looking for transactional relationships around things, great. Use those tactics because you can probably close. But we think there's much more value in long term beneficial relationships. And to develop those, you need to learn to sell without selling. Now, we're talking about this from a business context, but we would argue that selling without selling is just as important in your personal life because you're negotiating things constantly. You just don't think about them as a negotiation. And I've had jobs throughout my career that required heavy business negotiation. So I've negotiated literally thousands of deals, transactions, programs, contracts, whatever, various different forums. So I negotiate things at work all the time. But if you're in a relationship, you are negotiating. You may not think about it that way, but that's exactly what you're doing. If you have kids, you're negotiating. That's just how things are. And so we would argue that these tips are terribly important not only in a business setting, but in a personal setting as well. Because especially in a personal setting, you're looking to develop something more than a transactional relationship with the people that you're dealing with. You want to develop what I call a sticky relationship. You want to be more than just a vendor. You want to be more than just a solution to a particular problem on multiple things. And so, what selling without selling entails is focusing on building genuine relationships with potential people so that you can provide valuable information, you're addressing their needs, and you're demonstrating your expertise in a subject or subjects rather than aggressively pushing a product, a deal, a whatever it is that you're talking about. So, the way to do this is to educate. Sometimes that's through conversation, sometimes it's through uh, PowerPoint deck, sometimes it's through presentations in person. There's lots of ways to do it, but it's educating. It's teaching them or getting them to think about things the way you want them to think about things. And then actively listening, like really listen to the feedback. I took a sales training course one time, and the guy was talking about food sales. So selling to restaurants, hotels, places that serve food to the public. And he said, don't focus on selling them more lettuce. Help them sell more salads, and they'll buy more lettuce from you. So I thought that was a good way to do it because if you're trying to if you focus on solving their problems and focus on understanding their problems so you can help them, you're going to wind up in a much better spot. Sharing success stories. How has this worked in the past? Where have you seen it work in the past? Why is this beneficial to them? Not because you want to sell it, but because it's beneficial to them. That's where you really want to focus. And that's kind of the key to selling without selling. And then offering consultations, trials, showing them some value without any strings attached to it so that they can get comfortable with you, comfortable with the product, comfortable with the situation that you're talking about. And that goes a long way to providing a level of comfort to people because they're like, hey, you're giving this to me for free. I can kick the tires. It gives me a level of comfort that I'm not getting into some shady situation or something I'm not going to see value on going forward. And then, like we talked about previously, solve those customer pain points, solve that person's pain points. If you're in a relationship, what is it you bring to the relationship that the other person lacks, or what problems, what voids do you fill in that relationship so that you can show value? And so, look, there's been a couple have been married for 30 years, so largely good, but like through like any relationship, there's always spots where there's friction. And there's been a couple of times where I have just left a paycheck laying around because I make decent money. And just to remind my wife, hey, I've got some redeeming qualities, even though you might think I'm a jerk right now. It's not all bad hanging around me. So, but like whatever the pain points are, like you solve that. And look, I give my wife just as much credit as myself. She's been the stay at home mom and kind of ran our house and runs our family unquestioned. And she's just so good at it. She's an outstanding person just in general. And but she gets just as much credit as I do for my career because she helped build it. She was there for every step. She supported it. She made all sorts of sacrifices. We've moved several times, and so she gets just as much credit as I do for the career I've put together, which is kudos to her. So important to note because she provides things I can't provide for myself, and I provide things to her she can't provide for herself. So that's why our relationship works really well because we both genuinely want to help the other person and make their life better. So, selling without selling. Let's dig into some of the things we talked about and give some examples. So, educate through content creation. So, content creation isn't making Snapchat videos or YouTube videos or whatever. It can be that. It doesn't exclude those things, but it doesn't have to be that. So, you can do it through blog posts, you can do it through videos, webinars, PowerPoints, speeches, in person presentations, conference calls. There's lots of ways to do it. But when you do those things, you want to focus on not why your product is so awesome, but how that product or service solves a problem that the potential buyer or potential partner has. Don't focus it on you. That is the most important part to selling without selling. One of the things I've bought and sold a lot of real estate. And when I talk through real estate deals, I'll just kind of lay out the deal and say, this might be for you. It might not be for you. And that's okay. Whichever way, that's up to you to decide. I'm telling you where I see the benefits, what we think we can deliver, what we think the return is. And then it's up to you to make the decision on whether you think that fits in your portfolio or not. It's not up to me. So like I'm going to lay it out and then you probably won't hear back from me. Like if you want to move on it, you call me. That puts the ball firmly in their court. It gives them all the time and resources that they need to apply to it to make a decision. And if they decline, no big deal. Like I'll talk to you on the next one and maybe that one fits, maybe it doesn't. But you've developed a relationship, you've developed a rapport with that person, and now you've got another person in your Rolodex to call when opportunities pop up. So by educating people on those opportunities, it really develops trust. And trust is important. They got to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And that's terribly important. And look, things are going to go wrong. I can tell you that I have lots of things that have gone wrong where I have said, I think we can do X, Y, or Z, and then X, Y, or Z does not happen. And it sucks when that happens, but you got to be upfront about it and say, hey, this did not work out the way we would thought. Here were all the reasons why. Some of those maybe we should have known, some of them we didn't know, whatever the case may be, but you got to be upfront. You got to own your stuff. So using that content creation is one great way to get people to think about things the way you want them to think about it. And again, don't pitch why your stuff is so awesome. Nobody wants to hear all that stuff. They want to know how you're going to solve their problems, which leads us to point number 2, which is actively listen and ask insightful questions. So you got to pay real close attention to what their problems are. You may think your product or service is such a good solution, but it solves a problem they don't have. Now, they may have a different problem and that solution may fit that problem and they haven't connected those dots. And that's where you can step in and help connect those dots. But the only way you get there is if you ask questions, and you got to ask open-ended questions like, what's your biggest problem? What's your biggest challenge? What can I help you solve that would make your world easier, make your business run better, make you make more money? And then tailor your solution to those points because that's what's on their mind. That's where they need help. They just told it to you. Now, if you can come up with a solution for that, all of a sudden you show a lot of value to that person. And you're not, hey, the boss said I can knock $500 off the True Coat. Nobody wants that hard sell shit. It's not the way to go for long-term success. Next, you can share customer success stories. So if they share their pain points and you happen to solve those pain points, you can go, you know what? I got a person you can talk to because we've actually solved that for customer X. And customer X would be happy to talk to you about what their challenges were, how they used our product or service to solve those challenges, and how happy they are on the other side of it. So by sharing those success stories and even offering to connect them to customers, previous customers or current customers who are happy with your product or service, that's a great way to go. And it's not you selling, it's a third party who can say, yeah, look, we've worked with these guys before. They're legit. They really helped us get to a better spot. So that's a great way to go. Next, offer free consultations or trials. I know none of us like to work for free. None of us like to give away stuff. But if you've got a product or service that is, let's just say that the price of your service seems high, like you get that you get a price objection a lot. And look, I've run grocery stores for 30 years, and I've never had a customer call me and say, you know what, your prices are too low. You should raise them. You're always going to have price objections, and you've got to be prepared to deal with those. And if you give them something free or give them a reason, show some value that doesn't obligate them. For example, when I used to work at a large chain in the past, we had a scratch bakery. And at 4 o'clock, we would do French bread every day at 4 o'clock. And it smelled great. It was awesome. If the lines in the front got backed up, I would literally go hand people loaves of French bread and say, here, snack on this. It was warm right out of the oven. It was really good. It was like a sourdough French bread. It was awesome. And my cost on that was 17 cents. So I had people that were pissed about standing in a long line to wait to check out their groceries. All of a sudden, they're happy because they've got a hot loaf of French bread. They didn't pay anything for it, but it was just a little way to add some value. And by the way, the bread was so good, a lot of times people would pick it up and buy a couple loaves to take home to make for dinner. So it helped with sales too. So it's a great way to go. Offering free consultations, trials. Hey, we'll do a deep dive on this particular problem that you laid out and come back to you with solutions. You don't owe us anything. It's no obligation. You don't have to sign up for our service, but we'll tell you how we think we can solve it. Like that brings value. That helps them solve problems. That helps them address pain points in their organization. So it's a great way to go. And then again, focus on solving customer pain points because that's your job. If you're selling, if you're trying to, and even in a relationship, why should someone want to be in a relationship with you? And this goes for men, it goes for women. I've heard so many of both genders talk about why it's so important that men do this and you've got to watch out for these kind of women, and women do this, you got to watch out for these kind of men. Well, that may be true. I think you got to stand in front of the mirror too and say, hey, what do I bring? What is it how am I making my partner's world better? And that can be lots of different ways. It can be affection, it can be attention, it can be support, it can be financial, it can be lots of things. Whatever's important to the two of you, that's where you focus. That's where you spend your time. That's where you really try to bring value, is when you're addressing the pain points that they're feeling in their life. Are they lonely? You can solve that because they're not alone when they're with you. Are they, so for example, my wife is very anxious, and so we talk a lot, and it helps her work through some of her anxieties. I get angry real quick, and so I'll vent, and she will help me kind of get to a better spot mentally so I can calmly and rationally deal with the problem instead of flying off the handle and doing something stupid, which I've done plenty in my life, by the way. And she is a master at kind of talking me off the ledge and helping me work through those things. So whatever those pain points are, it doesn't matter. The point is to identify those pain points and then come up with a solution for those pain points. That's a much better way to sell than if you buy right now, I'll take 50% off or whatever the case may be. Next, so some key points to remember when we're doing this. Be genuine. Be authentic. People can tell when you're faking it. People can tell when you're putting on an act. People can tell when you're trying to sell them. And that's why you've got to learn to sell without selling, because they're going to shrivel. They're going to back. They're going to retract. They're going to try to disengage from the situation because it's uncomfortable and it's not fun. I'm personally very blunt. So, I have people say all the time, what's your budget for this? What are you looking to spend? And my answer is always the same. I'd like you to do it for free. If you're going to let me pick the price is free. So you're selling. It's your job to price your product to me, not my job to tell you what I should pay for it. It's not how it works. And so be genuine and be authentic. And that's who I am. Like, I get right to the point. That's exactly who I am. And that's why people are okay with it, is because they know I'm not faking it. They know I'm not being a bully. They know I'm not doing it from anything other than I don't like to waste a lot of time. Let's just get to the point. It's either going to work or it's not. Your solution may work. Your solution may not. We may need it. We may not. But let's get to that quickly. I tell salespeople all the time, the best answer you can get is yes. The second best answer you can get is a fast no, because there's no reason to waste time or effort when there's not a potential sale there. So move on, because I'm not your guy. It's not going to work for us. So if you're genuine and authentic, it goes so far to building trust. Don't be cheesy. Don't be salesy. Focus on building a genuine rapport with the person that you're dealing with. Provide value first. So don't look to hard sell or twist their arm into a deal. Show the value, show how you bring the value. Like we talked about earlier, maybe you do a deep dive and assess how you could bring value. Maybe you connect them to a customer who experienced the same problem and they can have a conversation with them about how your product or service solved their problem. And that can be a great way to show value first. You're not saying, hey, trust me, I promise. Like, that's a terrible way to go. So get third parties that are happy with your service to be salespeople for you, right? They're the best salespeople or current happy customers. That's super powerful from a sales perspective. Establish credibility. So if you know what you're talking about, no one's going to listen to you. Like our podcast, I say it a lot. I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to medical school. I'm not a psychologist, but I do have 30 plus years of pretty significant life experience across a broad spectrum of things. Whether it be personal relationships, whether it be supply chain, logistics, purchasing, merchandising. I've done all branding. I've done all of those things at a pretty high level. And so I can show a lot of value and expertise and credibility in those subjects because I've got a ton of experience in them. But if you took me and said, hey, why don't you teach us about ballet? Well, I'm the wrong guy. I don't know a thing about ballet. So I don't have any credibility in that subject. Or even art, like I can rattle off paintings from painters, but to tell you the first thing about why they're attractive or why they're so valuable, I'm not that guy. And so I don't have credibility in those subjects. So focus on subjects where you're credible. And if you're a new salesperson, learn your subject matter. You've got to know what you're talking about, or people are going to sniff it out immediately and they're not going to want to listen to you because they're not going to trust you. Next, follow up consistently. Even if they tell you no, just check in. Look, I'm not trying to hard sell you, just seeing how things are going. I enjoyed our conversations. I like your business, seem like good people. Want to see if there's anything that you're working on that we might be able to help with. If not, no big deal. Hope things are going well. Hope the kids are well, et cetera, et cetera. So it can lead to a referral from that person. I don't have a problem, but this person does. It can lead to business down the road. Maybe a different problem pops up and they think of you as a solution. So don't make it transactional. Don't make it, oh, you didn't buy my product or service, you're dead to me. So not the way to go. So that's kind of our tutorial on selling without selling. Just to recap, remember, make it about solving that person or customer's pain points. If you focus your conversations, your presentations, your efforts on solving those pain points, it's going to go a lot further than trying to hard sell them on your product or service and talking about why it's so awesome. Because at the end of the day, they don't care about why your product or service is awesome. They care about if it will solve the problem. And if it solves the problem, you probably have a chance at getting them as a customer. And if not, maybe down the road somewhere it will. But that's the way to do it. We've had a lot of success with this approach. We've learned it over many years. Negotiations, like we talked about, thousands and thousands of them. That's both as the buyer and as a person trying to sell. And we've got a ton of experience on those things. And this process has worked really well for us, better than any process that we have found. So we wanted to share it with you. So hope you guys found that useful. Hope you're able to take those tips and use them in your personal life and your professional life. And we hope you're successful when you do. So James puts it up over here every day. We've got our website, saltygingertalk.com. Don't forget to head over there. We've got all of our podcast episodes available there. We have links to all of our social media content on there. And then we do a weekday newsletter. We publish one every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Really appreciate you guys checking us out. Hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you next time, guys.